means I'll work on it for you. So, welcome to Sacrament Podcast number 11. I got the right number this time. Ha. All right, what is up, people? Real assets, man. All right, so what? Dungeon Crawler Network, Agelos, is actually my saving grace when it comes to marketing. He came on board while we were looking for somebody and has done shit more stuff than I even realized was out there to do. So thank you very much, and I'm glad you could join us for the first time live at Jellos. I hope he pretends to watch the videos. Um, I mean, I guess some of them are kind of long, so I'd rather him busting his ass working than watching these ridiculous videos that I got talked into doing or some shit. I don't even know. Anyway, all right. So last week, and I know, Lanham, you're failing us. Um, I have not put the video up on the website yet. I don't even think that I highlighted it and converted it to YouTube yet. So I do apologize for that. Again, this is not exactly my strong suit, so I'm filling in until we get somebody in here to actually provide what you guys want out of these podcasts. And at that point in time, those issues will never happen because we'll have like a, I don't know, 4 or 5 person team or whatever the teams are that do that kind of shit, working on that. So last week we talked about currencies. We went over the currency specifics, and I explained a little bit more about combat. We had a lot of questions on the forums and questions to private channels everywhere. I mean, I got Facebook posts, tweets, um, messages on the forums. I know Adora got some messages on the forums. Some a little bit of frustration in some of it, not too much frustration, but there was a little bit of frustration, and it's absolutely understood. If you're going to come in and if I'm to expect that you're going to trust this indie group, right? These group of guys that are gamers that have no other notable skills as far as creating a video game goes, um, I there should be a level of information that's readily available, and we are working on clarifying a lot of the information on the site. Um, I mean, when it comes to building a holy crap, we got a whole bunch of people here now. GG's here. When it comes to building a company from the ground up, I'm great at that. When it comes to building a video game and interacting with people, will you get out of the way? He's such a grumpy ass right now. No, I'm not. I apologize. Fucking cat. What are you hissing at? You, here, there you go. Now you can see out the window. Oh, bastard. Ugh. So that's a neighborhood cat. I'll probably wind up creating a character around that cat, which will be somebody who wants help but acts like a total dick the entire time they get it. So that'll be a thing. Um, this freaking cat, man. Anyway, all right. So as I was saying, when it comes to the interacting with people, it's been said from the very beginning, well before we publicly announced that we were creating this game, that that I'm not exactly the face of a business type. That's not exactly the kind of person I am. I get the job done. I will take care of people. I don't exactly relay that message very well. So long term, I'll still be talking with people and chatting it up, but all the stuff that I write will have to be translated to more user-friendly or reader-friendly content, which is what they're doing right now. All the stuff you see on the site, unfortunately for you guys, I did write it up. Unfortunately for you guys, it has to be translated to something that you appreciate slash understand a little more. With some people, it's just about being nitpicky as shit, right? I had some dude on Reddit say, "Oh, your shit's written in the first person." Fuck you, buddy. Okay? Seriously. What the fuck does that matter? Honestly. You don't think this is professional enough? Come over here. Come over here and try this shit, homie. Come here and try this. Come do what I'm doing. And then tell me about professionalism. I shot somebody in the forehead one time as a Marine. This shit was a professional ass shot. Somebody still got hurt. What is professionalism? To some level, you got to give and take. Some level, you got to just let the hell go of your uptightedness and relax a little bit. Just for real. First person writing is not going to slaughter the concept idea. It may destroy your book if you're doing it horribly, but you know, whatever. Anyways, I'm sorry. Oh, and we got people drinking. Son of a bitch. That's what I need. I need a beer right now, man. Oh, it's been that week. All right, so state of the game, flyover video update. This update, we picked up some new developers. We're hoping to be able to speed up the production of the video. We do have some in-house concerns that are being addressed. I don't want to put anybody out there on blast. I'm not going to get into the habit of that shit. The timeline has been delayed. The worst case scenario we're looking for, projected worst case scenario is January at this point. Still hoping to have it out in a few weeks. That's the hope. All that hope is dependent on whether or not we can get people functioning at a higher capacity at the distances we're traveled at, right? So we're not, right now we don't meet up in a singular building. We're spread across the country. Eventually those kind of things will be dealt with in different ways. I'm not going to create a million different satellite sites. I'm a murder, y'all. I love you. My family, ladies and gentlemen. Dealing with a cat. But until then, there are obvious things that have to be addressed, and these are things that anybody with decent frame of mind could have seen coming from a mile away. It's something we projected, something we expected to happen, and it happened. So hey, now we got a contingency plan playing out. It's that simple. That simple. Forum life still good, still rolling, still punching people in the face. I have not been as present on it. It's only because we've been working on setting up certain distractions, setting up certain pillars within the business, so as we continue to grow, we can start placing people in the right positions to make sure that everything's being managed on a level it needs to be managed at. So, social media life. I mean, like I said before, Jealous is tearing it up. So I don't really have anything else to add to that. I've already stated it. I'm not going to be redundant just to be redundant. Discussions. Okay, so today, that's a header I don't need to be reading. Today, we're going to talk about one of the things is most effectives. And most effectives essentially means what is this thing you guys keep talking about with most effective armor and most effective weapons, Lanham? I think I'll actually pull up. Let's go to, I think, what was the newest one? Doom Knight. Pretty picture. All right, so most effective, right? So we've got, we'll cover weapons first. So most effective over here, we've got a two-handed spear. Now, the way this works for martial weapons, the way we've got it outlined right now, is that each class is going to have the most effective, the most optimal weapon. This is going to be, it's going to allow them to perform their role slightly better than others. Not terribly better. It's not something that's blatantly better. But the reality is, an assassin picking up a wand or a staff is not going to be nearly, not freaking remotely as functional if that assassin was wielding two swords or two daggers or whatever the case may be. So that's the basic idea here, is what is the reality of this class? And we want to keep people able to put whatever weapons they want in their hands. So you see assassins out there, you know, dual wielding wands. I don't even know if that's possible. I don't, we've actually never talked about that. So as I'm saying that, don't take that as, oh my God, I'm gonna be a dual wield wand and mother. Don't take that as what that means. It's just me throwing out an idea, okay? Or not an idea, but an example. Maybe it's a horrible example. I don't know. Like I said, I got to be translated. So an assassin dual wielding wands, go have at it. Have fun, you know, and shred the world up if you can. I don't know if they'll be able to right now. I highly doubt it. But if they want to go for it, if somebody got the skill to make it happen, then hey, fuck it. Go do it. Most assassins will likely sit around swords, daggers, stuff like that. I mean, it's really the assassin play. A lot of other assassins like to you know, break out the bow and arrow. Maybe they want to be rangers instead of assassins. At launch, there are only a few classes that have their own invis. I can say this, that the ideas that we have towards the alternate advancement system, I'm not sure when that's coming out. It's not going to be out for launch. It will be an after launch thing that'll go into play. But I know that in the alternate advancement system, we have outlined that one of the things we want is that all rogues have the stealth capability. It's not going to be as powerful as a class that has their own to go along with the AA. It'll kind of piggyback off of the idea. So if you're a ranger, or you want to use a bow and arrow and you want to be the most effective with a bow and arrow, you know, the ranger might be where you want to be. If you're an assassin, you really like the stealth, and you also want to use a bow and arrow, go for it. You're going to be a little less effective than if you were using, you know, two daggers. I believe the assassin is daggers. I'm almost certain of it. I don't even know why I have to look this up. I think I just like to not be. Oh, okay, it's first one there. So dual wield daggers. In that regard, you know, it is what it is. There are going to be, you know, passives and whatnot out in the game that are going to increase your capabilities with each weapon type. And it's not going to be something that, I mean, for obvious things, right? So an assassin with two daggers versus an assassin with a bow and arrow, it's not going to be absolutely blatantly obvious. There are going to be some abilities that they're not going to be able to use because they do have range limitations on them. However, maybe they just don't slot those abilities. Again, you know, this combat system, you're not having all of your abilities on your bar at the same time. You're picking what abilities you want to utilize. And it's a little bit more than what some of these games recently have been throwing out there, which kind of drives me nuts. But having all abilities out there is something that I never really liked the MMO world going into. I mean, it feels too much like you're staring down cooldown timers instead of actually paying attention to the fight. So you know, it's something that we wanted to pull away from. What's up, dude? Incoming block. I mean, he's gorgeous, don't get me wrong, but damn, is this dude just feisty as shit. I'm not, no. Anyway, as Lanham argues with a cat live. All right, so that's the basic idea around the most effective weapons, and I'm realizing that we got the word starting weapons in there. I'm gonna have to fix that. I thought I already did. I apologize for that. Hey, we're constantly debugging our site, right? All right, so when it comes to armor, we have a little bit of a different system. So armor has three elements to this particular idea here. One is the RE you see right there, which is the roll effective. So this is, if you're a tank, wearing roll effective armor gives you the most bang for your buck. And what do tanks do? Tanks mitigate and draw threat, right? So that is the core functionality of the tank. Wearing the roll effective armor is going to allow them to mitigate more and to generate more threat. Tanks that wear plate armor, and these are the only ones that have this, but tanks that wear plate armor, such as the Paladin, have what is called offensive, or OE, offensive effective armor. And all this does is, instead of what the DE does, which I'll explain in a second, this increases their offensive capabilities, but decreases their ability to generate threat and mitigate damage. So you're gonna perform a little bit more DPS. So this is really more in the vein of soloing. A tank isn't really going to go into a raid in offensive effective armor unless he's absolutely mastered his skills, and now he can fully generate enough threat, mitigate enough damage, not to have to worry about it. Oh, sorry. Oxygen to the brain. The cat's killing me. So, holy conversation. So this is not something that's going to be so dynamic that you're going to see all tanks in offensive effective armor still doing their job, and then their DPS is skyrocketing as well. It's not how we're functioning in this game. This is just going to give them a little bit more spunk, right? Sacrifice a little bit for a little bit. They're not going to become squishy because they've changed armor. They're not going to be absolute beasts of DPS because they've changed armor. It just provides a little bit more flair, a little bit more spunk in other things that they want to do. Back to the assassin, we've got right here defensive effective armor, so DE. In this case, and this one was really the important one for us. I'm sure there's going to be tanks out there that utilize OE, probably more for soloing than anything. In this regard right here, defensive effective armor was a way for us to provide players in raids who are still learning the fights a way to help out a little bit with mitigation. So again, you lose a little bit of your effectiveness in your role. So if you're DPS or healing, whatever, but you gain a little bit more armor. You become a little less squishy. It's not tremendously so, but it is enough that it should give you, a little bit more oops moments without, the ultimate squish. At the same time, you're going to lose that effectiveness on the back end where you are, or the front end really, where you are CCing all the shit and debuffing everything and snaring and sleeping and lulling stuff. Your abilities will function a little less effectively and likely cost a little bit more. So these are just, we talked about allowing anybody to wear any armor piece, and we came up with several scenarios where it could be beneficial, and it became more of a hassle to talk about coding in different benefits for every single class, because benefits for every single role wasn't working. Benefits for each race wasn't working, so we were going to have to create benefits for every single class, for every single armor type, and code it in, and the game would constantly have to be checking this stuff. And it would just I mean, planning it all out was extensive enough that we realized really quickly that this was really just going to become another one of them things, well, in ESO, where you had a sorcerer who was a light armor tank who had just as much mitigation as a heavy armor tank in any other scenario. I mean, the other tanks still had a freaking leg up because they had all kinds of additional mitigation perks and whatnot. But, playing ESO, I played a heavy armor tank sorcerer for the longest time, found out how to pull it off with light armor, and then light armor tanked everything for the longest time, and had insane spell mitigation. So with the lower our armor gets, the more spell mitigation you've got versus physical mitigation, and the higher the armor gets, the less spell mitigation you've got, but the more physical mitigation you've got. So we just didn't feel that we could properly balance that system out to prevent raids going in with everybody being, half and half resistant to everything under the sun. So it was something we chose. It was a task we chose as an indie crew, as a crew coming in with a huge game already on the table, with a lot of things already that we were having to fight uphill towards, that this just wasn't one of the things we wanted to fight uphill towards. So could that change long term? Absolutely could change. I mean, we've left the lore open in so many areas that any damn thing could change. But if it changes, it'll be, first major expansion, second major expansion. One of those events will be what changes that. It won't be changed at the launch of the game. Okay. Here he comes again. Hi. Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't know if y'all can hear that dude, but all right. Does anybody have any? You're in my way. Does anybody have any questions about where we're sitting on how the most effectives work? I don't think I'm not seeing any questions here about it, but oh, interesting concepts with these role offensive defensive stats. Okay. All right, so if you've got any questions, feel free to post them. We'll read them. My team will get them. What's the penalty for not using the most effective? Um, as far as weapons go, it depends on the weapons you're using. I mean, we're not talking about you only do 10% damage off your abilities because you're using the wrong weapon type or anything. We're talking about what the numbers we're looking at right now. And keep in mind, balance and testing, right? Right now, we're looking at the most effective weapon with all perks and all passives going up to about 120% of your potential for the base damage of the ability. Um, Worst weapons that you could possibly have and no passives at all, we're talking about 80% effectiveness of that ability. So it's a 40% spread, best case scenario to worst case scenario. Likely what will happen is somebody decides that they want to go out and um, let's say it's an assassin, right? Let's say it's an assassin who wants to dual wield wands. Again, I doubt you'll be able to dual wield wands in this game. Don't quote me on that being a thing. It's just an example of something that's, kind of absurd. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Just, as it stands right now, kind of absurd. So if an assassin decides he wants to go dual wield wands, well, there's a few things that are going to have to happen. Realistically, and this is the majority of the player base that we're targeting anyways. So realistically, they're going to go out and they're going to find all the passives, all the bonuses, the best abilities to use, and they're going to go out and they're going to build for that setup. So they're going to go out and do all this questing and whatnot, and it may take 2 months to get all the passives and all the clickies and whatnot that increase your damage potential with the wands. But maybe they'll be sitting at more like 98%. So really it's only a 22% spread if you even had all the passives for the daggers itself. So it's really in the player's hands in that regard. There are obvious limitations, but they're limitations based on realism, not just game developers wanting to say fuck you, go use daggers. So we're not trying to do that. We just want people to realize that your decisions are absolutely your decisions. Unlike some other games, you're never going to hear us sit here and say you can play however you want in any style you want and go and be successful. You can play however you want in any style you want, but don't come crying to us when you fail like a motherfucker trying to wear some shitty ass armor, some tier 1 armor, trying to do tier 15, tier 16 raids with the wrong damn weapons in. This motherfucker. I'm going to point you to videos of people who are doing it, and then I'm going to laugh at you. So that's that. All right. So did that? Oh, armor wise doesn't really get a penalty. Armor wise, you're just swapping, right? Armor's an even exchange. So it's really if you're using, a defensive or an offensive effective armor type, that's this because you chose to do so. Oh, sorry. I mean, we've got quite a few systems in the game around the armor specifically that I can likely cover next week, but that are going to allow you, yeah, freaking cat. Oh, that cat too. Ha. Um, that are going to allow you to make those kind of decisions. You may not be as effective. Okay, let's say I joined a raid team, tier 18 raid team, right? My guild fell apart. I joined a tier 18 raid team, and I've never been to the raid before. There's a really good scenario now where, as a bard, everybody in the mama knows I'm playing a bard. Okay, if you don't know, go look at the damn bard. I'm just kidding. All the classes are built up really fucking nicely. So, and any flaws, anything we're missing, will be adjusted. So don't you worry about that. Um, I joined a raid team. Let's say it's got 3 bards on it. Looking for a 4th bard. And my previous guild fell apart. Maybe they all had babies and shit. We all know how real life happens. So I'm looking for a new raid team. Join them. Never been in this raid, right? I've only done one tier 18 raid. I just barely got flagged for tier 18. I don't even have shit for tier 18 gear. Maybe I've got a freaking locket or some shit so far. I've been farming, but I don't have anything yet. So what's likely going to happen is the guild would, and this is what I would do, would ask me to wear all defensive effective armor so I can see the fight and experience the fight. Because in 24 to 36 players, I'm only one person. While one person can make and destroy a raid, at the same time, protecting that one person and limiting that one person and knowing going into it that that one person is more of a liability than an asset at this point. It's a lot easier to plan ahead for this stuff when you can tell them, go full defense, absolutely full defense, CC and lull and do whatever you can in that. We'll understand that you're going to be a little capped on that end because you're increasing your ability to survive so you can actually see and experience the fight. Next time, or maybe it's we'll have you run this 2 or 3 times, and then we're gonna take the training wheels off and have you go full RE. Or maybe the first time is full DE, second time's a half and half mix, third time you're full RE. You better survive, motherfucker. That's probably how I'd run my raids, absolutely honestly, with brand new people coming in, so that they can get a little bit of experience out of the fight, so that they don't. Because the worst thing that could happen is you bring the new guy and he dies 5 seconds into the fight, and you still got a 15-minute fight ahead of you. And is it even worth rezzing? I mean, the fight mechanic's going to dictate that, but many times, you'll res them once or twice, but they wind up spending most of the time on the ground. So this was a way for us to allow players to wear more than just one armor type, and still provide some type of meaning for it. So RV, is that RV Ikari? I think so. R Vickery? Yeah. So I'm not sure I understand how it works. Is it simply like I wear chainmail and on the body and leather on arms and things like that? Okay, so you've got 17, I think it's 18 total slots, right? 2 are weapon slots. Anybody use a 2-handers, it's 1. Then you've got some jewelry slots, and the rest of that is all armor pieces, all body pieces. I think there's 5 jewelry slots. I know we've got 8 visible slots, and I believe we've got 2 or 3 non-visible armor slots. So essentially, for every single slot you've got there, it's all dependent on what you wear. You can put whatever the hell you want in there. If you're an assassin, right? We got them up on the screen, so we use that. If you're an assassin, and let's say you put leather on all slots but body and legs, and then in body and legs, you go with chainmail. At that point in time, in those 2 slots, you've lost, that small percentage. Maybe it's 1% per piece or something like that. You've lost that small percentage towards your roll, but gain that same exact percentage towards your survivability. So your defense goes up by that much. So it's really just swapping out pieces to fit where you need them to fit. And we expect the players are going to utilize and play with the system as they need to. Especially tanks. We have some lower armored tanks. The only classes that have... Alright, so do we have... I don't think I have any tanks that are... What is a Doom Knight? Yeah. That's wrong. Hey, Doom Knight is supposed to be defensive effective, not offensive effective, by the way. So we'll correct this right here. But the Doom Knight, is a tank. He's a CC style tank, right? So he doesn't CC the way a pure CC would do. He debilitates his targets, right? So he'll throw armor reduction, um, some abilities that latch onto an enemy's armor and sap resources from them, whether it's a primary resource or health or whatever the case may be. Um, and when when that type of a tank, because it's using chainmail, not full plate, when that type of a tank goes into a fight the first time, those types of players may wear 2 or 3 pieces of plate, which makes them a little bit more defensive. It pulls back a little bit on their effectiveness as far as pulling threat and mitigating raw damage. Or not mitigating raw damage, I apologize. Dealing damage, life tap, stuff like that. Those kind of things are going to be affected, but they're not going to be dramatically. Like the entire class isn't changing just because you're wearing, even if you went in with a full set of defensive effective armor, the entire class isn't changing. So, um, but it's going to allow them to go in knowing they're going to take a few extra shots and kind of fluff themselves a little more defensively, even if it may cause them to have to work a little harder to hold threat against their DPS, because we know DPS are assholes, and DPS, I mean, they're going to pull a lot of threat. So yeah, so um, so I could choose different types to try and make a more effective build or a hybrid type. Absolutely. There are going to be some players in the game that are going to constantly run with a specific setup. Doom Knights. I imagine that there's going to be Doom Knights who wear, chest and legs that are raw armor, that are defensive effective, and then everything else will be their chainmail armor. And they'll probably play the entire game like that and love it. And there's no real consequence there. If they can go to a raid and perform as a tank, it doesn't matter. It's not the raid's not going to care. They don't need to generate a billion times more threat than the rest of the raid force. They just need to be ahead of threat when they're main tanking, or when they're specifically tanking an individual target, right? Because in our raid scenarios, main tank is not the same thing as in other games. The main tank isn't just the guy that's sitting on the boss. We've got fights where the off tanks are actually doing the bulk of the work. They're the ones getting their ass beat. They're the ones that have to be watched. So main tank in our game, yeah, it's going to have a little bit of different meaning. In most games, it means the guy that's taking the brunt of the work, the one that's tanking the boss and keeping him from killing everybody. In this game, sometimes it's going to be the guy that's distracting the boss, and the boss really ain't doing all that much damage. It's the rest of the raid doing the damage. So, it's going to change. But our entire gear system is absolutely amazing. So that's just a peek at how that functions. That doesn't even begin to talk about the rune slots within the gear. And we do have updates to release on the rune slots. We've created a way for that to be a little bit more diverse, going from weapons to jewelry to armor itself. So we've adjusted that and made some changes that will need to be addressed, and we will go over that when that happens, without any questions. So, but that's where the bulk of the building for your class comes in. So even if you do decide to go pure defensive effective as a tank, you instead of building for I don't know, instead of building to do more mitigation itself, you could build to generate more threat off of certain abilities or whatever the case may be. And that'll all be within your rune slots, and you'll be able to build them effectively. You can get a very solid look at how rune slots are going to function on the website. Under armor. Yep. So armor slots. This name has been changed, and we've adjusted some of this stuff. So this gives you a pretty solid outlook or look on how this is going to work. And the changes that we're making aren't going to change any of the information here except for the first slot right here. So, in that regard, the only thing coming different is this comes off of that slot. We're changing the way that the armor type goes into the armor, and the name of it is different. Outside of that, it's still don't you attack my feet, boy. I will eat you whole in front of this camera. Oh, I'm sorry, I hate my feet being attacked. So anyway, so that's that. All right, so balance. How are we approaching balance in this game? So this has been asked a few times, and we're going to talk about this a million times again and a million times over. And that's because it's really fucking important. It's not just important for you. Balance is massively important for us. I can't even begin to express how important balance is for us. Why? Well, I'm sitting here putting my freaking life on the line. I mean, it's going to be hard for me to play any games if we just blatantly let this shit crash, right? I mean, if we give it an absolute honest try and we produce a good game, but people just don't give a shit about it, that's one thing. If we create a game and it releases and it's either buggy as shit and you can't do anything, or the balance is atrocious, I mean, I could pretty much say goodbye to my gaming career. As far as MMOs go, anybody sees my name and they're just going laugh and laugh and laugh, And so we need to make, for us, it's important to make an absolutely solid attempt. We're not MMO business company. We're gamers with some rather unique talents, business-wise and otherwise, and the capability to understand what our weaknesses are and go and find people to fill those weaknesses in. But we don't want to stop gaming just because this project didn't work out, if it doesn't work out. Which means a lot for us, which means we've got more on the line than anybody else does, right? For us, we could get in bed with a bank and default on a loan and file for bankruptcy, and it's small business as usual. For a AAA company, they'll just find somebody to sell their company to and find a way to generate that money back and blah, blah, blah. There's no recoup for us. For us, it's all in or nothing. So for us, the things that we've noticed that have absolutely hurt this industry are some of the things that are on the forefront of what we are focusing on. And balance is absolutely one of them. I mean, it's right past game-breaking bugs. Balance is probably number two. And I mean a very close number two. It could possibly be tied for one of the most important aspects of a game itself. We've seen shitty games out there with shitty balance, or great games with shitty balance, and it turns it into a shitty game. So, in the vein of momentum ability. So, as we're releasing these classes, you'll notice that these classes have, I really like the Doom Knight right now, so we're going to go to the Doom Knight again and again. But, so you notice that we've got abilities over here, momentum and non-momentum. And some people, I mean, we got a mass amount of information on the website. So going through the entire website and gathering all the information, Adora is working on making that a little easier to do, a little more user-friendly. But the reality is we got so much information right now, let alone in 2 years, nobody's going through every single piece of it. Okay? Nobody. You'd be out of your damn mind. Some people will find exactly what they want. Some people will find exactly what they want on the website and then move on to asking questions. It's what I would do. I'd look up the classes and find the class I want, and oh my God, they got barred. I'd check out their abilities, and then I'd go ask a million questions, right? I'd get flamed on the forums pretty hard, but at the same time, somebody would have a conversation with me or link me to a video of understanding Sacrament or some shit like that, and I would be able to gather information, and then Theorycraft and Nerdgasm and all that shit. So it's justifiable that people have a lot of questions about this stuff. It's important that people have a lot of questions about this stuff, honestly, because if we don't understand what people don't understand, then we can't improve and we can't make it easier for people to understand what we're trying to do. So when we're looking at momentum abilities, all you're seeing right here, make this special note, all you're seeing right there, over there, yeah, I try not to do that because I'm fucking horrible at that. So all you're seeing over there is simply the initial ability itself. A few things you need to understand about momentum abilities. One, these are not your primary abilities. These are your class abilities. Okay, there is a difference. I believe I covered this last week. Yes, I did. Um, so if you want an in-depth explanation of that, go to last week's. Um, I just realized, Jealous, that you posted it as number 9. That was my fault because I had it set up as number 9. So we'll have to correct that. But anyways, so these are the abilities that are meant to, I mean, momentum. It's a self-explained word. It's you're on a roll. You're moving in a single direction. You're building up force and you're building up this energy. And so these momentum abilities or class abilities that are meant to make your class pop more than any other class in that specific avenue right there. So here we go. So Nightmare, right? Number 2, Nightmare. Causes the target to cower in fear, preventing action for X seconds. Now, it's a CC type tank. Very important for this tank. This is, however, just the initial. Now, you'll notice we do need to change the name on that. We decided that we wanted 2 different types of fears. We wanted a terror, which caused enemies to kind of freeze, right? Cower, become immobilized kind of thing. Not stunned or anything like that, but immobilized. So the idea is that the terror might potentially be broken off if they receive enough damage within, however many, let's say this last 5 seconds. If they receive, 20% of their health and damage for within that 5 seconds or 10% or something, it might shake them out of that terror or whatever. But terror causes them to kind of become too afraid to act in one spot, while fear sends enemies running away in fear. So we do, we're constantly evolving, updating certain things. So we'll change the verbiage on that to read cower in terror, and we'll make sure that it's covered later. But so this is just the cover of the ability. This is the initial effect of the ability. As players use this ability, as players are casting this on enemies and being effective in combat, notice that I'm not saying as they kill enemies, right? So as they're being effective in combat, they're gaining experience towards these abilities. These momentum and non-momentum abilities, these class abilities, have 3 evolutions they can go through. And in these evolutions, they can pick, a secondary, tertiary, and what's the fourth? Fourthiary? I don't know. And a 4th trait, I think 4, maybe just 2. No, there's 4. So let's say, for instance, causes the target to cower in terror, preventing action for X seconds. I don't have my list up on me right now, but let's say the first you get it to level 30. I believe it's 30, 60, 90, or maybe it's, yeah, that feels right. 30, 60, 90. We'll call 30, 60, 90, which will actually want to be in 300, 600, 900. We've expanded them. You'll still increase it at the same rate, but we've expanded it because we had another thing. What was that? Yeah, I don't know. So we'll assume that there's 3 for right now, okay? Um, yes, time to correct things. So we're gonna assume there's 3. There might only be 2, but I think there's 3. I think there was 4, and we found that 4 was just way too much. So essentially, what happens is you get this evolution. The first, let's say you get it up to level 30, and it hits the first evolution, and in that you could pick one of 2 paths to walk. Let's say the first path is for that X amount of seconds. Any attacks on the target will tap, 2% of the damage back as health to anybody that deals damage to it. So that's got a lot of potential in it, right? And you're building up momentum. So this isn't a spammable ability, but this is something that now, if you're not tanking, if you're off tanking, now all of a sudden this is something, or even you're in between tanking phases. This is now something that you can put on to help a tank out or help yourself out or help the raid out a little bit. It's a small thing, but it's something that's measured immensely on a grand scale. Let's say the other one is, we'll call it strengthened nightmares or lingering nightmares, where after that X seconds, the next effect, or for the next X seconds, every now and again, an attack will be interrupted as the target remembers the nightmare or whatever. Um, that's something that plays a great deal towards tanking, because now you're talking about preventative mitigation at this point, and this is a huge element. So you pick one of two paths. Now, let's say you've picked the life tap portion, right? Because everybody likes a fucking life tap. Everybody and their mama loves a life tap. It is hard to compete with a life tap. It's just what it is. So you go out into 30, pick the life tap. Now you're at level 60. Now you have two more things you could choose. Now, this is not the only two. Had you picked the other, you'd have a completely different set of two things you could choose. So you've got the Cowers in Terror, and for the next, I don't know, we'll call it 10 seconds, has a chance, a 30% chance, a 50% chance to tap 10% of the damage done to whoever attacks it, right? Now you're looking at the ability to add a third effect on there, and that third effect, let's see, if we're going down the life tap chain, we'll say maybe it increases, one of the effects increases the trigger chance for the life tap up to 100%. And then the other one would, I don't know, reduce the target's armor, which means that you're doing more damage, which means that more of that is now being converted into life at the end of the day, right? So now you pick. Let's say we want the absolute chance for the life tap, which probably be a reason why we don't do it like that. Maybe it's a 66% chance or something. So let's say you choose 66% chance. Now you get it up to level 80. Now you got another option. And each of these lines has two options of their own. And for the most part, we've got all these listed out. And we're going through and we're making sure that they fit the class and they fit the class type and they make sense to the ability, and that it's something that, will you move? There's nobody in here. So when we create all these, we want all of these to be something that the raid would want to use. None of these are designed specifically for the single target play. These are designed for the entirety of a raid. If you're at a raid and you're doing this stuff, it has to be viable. It has to be viable. If you build it for single target play, it becomes highly unviable for raids really quickly, right? So if you got a stun where you can stun anything that's not considered a boss mob, that stun's nearly fucking useless at a raid. Sure, you can stun a whole bunch of little trash ads, but that's not the entire fight. Are you really going to put that kind of an ability on your bar when it can't even remotely affect the boss, if it's got no chance at all? You've got a reduced chance to affect the boss with your stuns, but it's not an absolute not fucking happening kind of thing. We do have targets that are immune to CCs and certain effects in the game, as their innate capabilities to avoid those kind of things. But if it's not immune, then every ability we've got in this game needs to be highly functioning. And this is what the momentum abilities are. That said, you're never going to take this momentum ability and run into PvP and absolutely fucking own people because all you do is momentum abilities. You're not going to build up momentum, then go into stealth, waiting for somebody to come by. Good luck. Assassins are kind of going to hate that shit, because once you're out of combat, your momentum starts to decline, right? Let's talk about the word. If you're not moving forward, if you're not moving and generating energy, you're not building momentum. You're losing momentum. Momentum is not something that can be put on hold. It is either gained or lost, and that's just the reality of momentum. So when it comes to this, you're going to lose your momentum if you're not in combat. So there's not going to be those situations where rogues or assassins are going to be able to 1v1 someone, to near death, and then all of a sudden just go invis, wait for somebody to sneak by, and then assassinate him in the back. we're we're trying to balance everything and make it function. In PvP, things are going to work a little different, anyways. What you see here is all PvE, all PvE world stuff. There's not going to be massive changes, but there are going to be notable changes because of things like that. We don't want any players one-shotting anybody. Fuck that shit. The shit's not happening. So damage is scaled completely differently in PvP against other players. You'll never see a one-shot. At launch, you should never see a one-shot. If you do, we've absolutely fucked something up. So we'll be fixing that with a harsh prejudice. Believe that. So that's balance and momentum abilities. So there's a time filter there because you need to build up the momentum in order to use it. Let's say, I guess, the goal here is for every 10 normal attacks that or primary ability attacks that you do, should generate enough momentum to utilize a momentum ability. For every, I would say for every 10, maybe 7 or 8 primary abilities that you do, you're probably going to want to cycle one of your weapon attacks. So you're talking about now, anywhere from 11 to 12 abilities in between each momentum ability. And it could wind up being more than that. It could wind up, if we need to balance it, we'll increase the cost or reduce, rather, the amount of momentum you can gain off of abilities in order to make it flow the way we want it to flow. What we do not want to see, and I only bring this up because it's a great example of a very recent game, is the ultimates from ESO. These were meant to be these kind of fight-changing abilities, but they became these highly spammable abilities because the system they had in place to measure the gain of ultimates, the finesse system, never made it to launch. And I've heard plenty of reasons why from actual testers, but we don't want to see that happen. We have an absolute desire for these abilities, and we want to see these abilities have value to them. And that value, believe it or not, comes with giving it an effective cost, giving it its place, not allowing it to be something that's just spammable. If you got $1 million, you just throw it around. That $1 million really don't mean shit to you. If you got a penny, at pennies, that's all you got. That shit means a lot to your ass. So it's the same kind of concept. If you could throw the ability around all the time, it really doesn't mean that much. If you have to figure out when you're going to use these abilities and it becomes a strategic point in the fight, then you're going to use these abilities a little bit more intelligently. What you're going to put on the bars based on the fight you're going into, how you use the abilities, what order you use them in. These kind of things are going to be far more important for you as a player, as a class, as a raid to function. So, all right. Yeah. I have I have my own cat, Siamese. He's absolutely adorable. Fucking sweetheart. Little pimp sauce. And then this guy right here, who's actually, we thought he was a stray. He's falling asleep. He's not a stray. His owners just kind of, care about him. He spends a lot of time in our yard, and it's cold and rainy outside. Live in New Hampshire, so it's, I don't know. I think it's only like 60 right now, but it freezes overnight right now. Which is a good thing that I put my wood stove in. So we brought him in to kind of shelter him from those elements. Because he's, he really is a cool motherfucker. He just need to chill the fuck out with hogging up the camera. Jeez, man. Anyway, all right, so balance weapons versus armor. So there's a unique system going on here that Wicked wanted to incorporate, and after explaining to us how he was going to do it, made absolute sense. And it was the weapons dealing different damage based on the type of armor being worn, right? Which has huge implications in PvP, even more so in PvP. But in PvE, it's going to change the way players play. Well, the way melee players or martial players play, right? Rangers, I think, I don't think we've discussed whether or not we have blunt tip arrows or anything like that yet. So I think arrows are simply piercing. But assassins, anybody using a bladed weapon or a blunt weapon, a melee type weapon, they're gonna notice a difference in their hits based on the type of enemy they're attacking, which means they're gonna carry around weapons for each different type of enemy. Now, this brings in the implication that we are in fact talking about free swap of weapons. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. So in EQ1 you can swap weapons all the time. It didn't really matter. Um, what we have to be careful of is if we do some free swap of weapons, and that includes an ability bar to go along with it, then we've got to make sure that our cast timers and whatnot are not cast timers, but recast timers, global cooldown, stuff like that is not being abused. So, um, weapon versus armor for the balance, this one's fairly simple. We After all the calculations for your effectiveness of a weapon has been done, then it checks against the armor. So let's say you're using a slashing weapon, or yeah, we'll go slashing weapon against a plate armor. You're going to lose potential damage on that. And if you look at your weapon, you're going to see potential damage. You're never going to see actual damage, right? And that potential damage is going to show you the difference between you using that weapon and using another weapon. Now, players are going to need to weight the differences in their effectiveness with a weapon versus the benefit of using that weapon type against that armor type, which is why we don't have that big of a spread on. So daggers for an assassin, right, with all passives be up to about 120%. In the same vein, swords for an assassin with all passives be up to about 115%. So there will be a desire for that assassin to use swords against the appropriate kind of armor and daggers against the appropriate kind of armor. It'll be something that they want to do. So I don't know the actual layouts right now. I want to say bludgeoning, which is different than blunt, is a really heavy blunt weapon as opposed to a single-handed blunt weapon. Bludgeoning is ideal against plate. Blunt is chainmail. Piercing is leather. No, piercing is cloth, and then slashing was leather. So, and these are actually based on real-world comparisons of these types of weapons. So, it's a lot of what we do actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, has a lot of real-world comparison application here. So, fuck, our entire crafting system is based on real-world crafting. So, class versus the game. So, what the hell was I trying to say there? In a raid scenario, because we're always balancing for the raid primarily. Because believe it or not, is far easier to balance to the raid and then adjust. No, I didn't see the question yet. Okay. R. Vicari says, I'm not sure if you talked about this or if I already read it, but how many abilities will be able to use at a time? That's a good question. When your character is first created, right now, we have 4 role type, your 2 weapon abilities, right? Left click, right click, 4 role type abilities, 2 class abilities, and 4 clickies. And then you'll be able to go out and find passives that will increase up to, I can't remember if it was 6 or 8. I believe it's double what's already there. But they're spread throughout all the tiers. Sorry about that. They're spread throughout all the tiers. So you're looking at end game with everything. I believe it's 5 role type, which are your primary abilities. 4 class abilities. Did I say 5? I meant 8 primary abilities. 4 class abilities. And 8 clickies. And then an epic ability. And the epic can either be, right now, it is either class or deity epic. So, I'm pretty sure that's correct. It's in my document, but Google Drive right now is being a pain in the ass, and I don't want to have to try to find my document on my computer. It'd take me longer to find it than it'd be worth having that exact answer. All right, so Mr. Bucky Cat. So say if a fire spell is used against a plate armor, it might have a longer burn over time metric as the metal would hold the heat, whereas say leather would almost not have any burn over time. That's actually a great question. It's actually a great idea. I don't think we've considered adding aspects like that. Um, that could go into the combination slots actually, because the fire still has to meet the melting point for that particular type of metal. And keep in mind, there are hundreds of different metals, not hundreds. There are quite a few different metals that are in this game. Uh, right now, just the wood alone, I think we're looking at 80 different types of wood that can be used in the game. I don't know if crafters will have access to all 80, but there will be 80 different variables in there for the game itself. And these are all determined, especially when it comes to weapon and armor, what has the strongest texture, what can retain the most of everything, and it's all based on what you're trying to do with it. So what for a bow, what has the most give, but has the most amount of durability, what can flex the most, what breaks easier when being cut, what can be cut without chipping away and without reducing the overall integrity of the wood. So there's a lot of questions to go into that. I think for that really comes down to, do we want to consider the amount of heat a fire spell is going to generate, and then how would we go about doing that? And then for every piece of plate mail and chain mail and leather and cloth, it's going to be affected based on the results. So there will be a checks and balance if we decide to do that. I will pass that on to Wicked though and see what he thinks about that. That's a pretty good idea. Um, all right. So can't even buy a piece of gum. Fucking gum. The class versus the game. So there are people out there. I know I said this last week, and it's probably me ranting at this point. There are people out there who, they love sandbox games. Me, I've never played a pure sandbox game. EverQuest 1 was the closest to sandbox I got, and I'd call that like I don't know, maybe a 40% sandbox about. Um, our game has some sandbox elements to it, but we do not have a strong enough sandbox element to be able to do things like get away with remove classes and have players build their own classes. Um, we're not theme park. We're absolutely progression. The only theme park type style we have can actually be bypassed by players. Takes a little bit longer, a little bit more effort, but there are going to be players that absolutely want to do that anyways. So more power to them. That's why we created it for. And by sandbox or theme park, what I mean is you're given hints in a quest to potential objectives and targets for the main storyline for your tier progression flagging kills, but you're not given the locations. That's about as theme park as we go. So I guess that's more like the Batman ride without the shoulder harness, right? Hold on for dear fucking life and go fuck yourself. Um, God, we'll give you viable clues, okay? I mean, we're not going to leave you cold. This isn't Morrowind, all right, where you're going to have quest after quest after quest. Besides, at some point, somebody's going to be online with all the freaking quest locations anyways, and half the fucking gaming world goes and looks it up. So, um, more power to them. Whatever. I don't care. Do what you got to do. Um, you play the way that makes you feel good. So for us, the class was important for us because it means that players get to create an identity in the world, and that's something that's very important for gamers. Um, in a sandbox game, you go out and you earn an identity. You make one, and a lot of players really never have an identity. A lot of players just kind of do whatever, and they'll switch that up every now and again. Some players I've seen switch it up every damn day they log in. Um, with our style of game, the class is a massive necessity. And with our style of game, the types of players want to know who they are as they start. And then they want to go in that individual niche. They want to identify who they are as a person who is playing that game. when I played as a bard in EQ1, I absolutely wanted to be the bard. I played as a necro first and a bard. When I switched to the bard, it was because seeing what they could do, seeing how they could switch over to many different things and perform many different roles was something that was badass for me. Now, in our game, they're not going to be able to fulfill as many roles. I could tank as a bard in EQ1. In this game, you're not going to have the threat to tank as a bard. Well, actually, that's a lie. If you do charm tanking, you'll be good to go. You'll fucking hate it, but you'll be good to go as far as threat goes. Anyway, um, with within that game, I wanted to be known as, I mean, laying them at your feet, but the bard that could be relied on to do crazy shit. I mean, there were bards out there that only ever wanted to do one or two things, right? They never wanted to pull. They only wanted to sit back and play songs. They didn't even want to swing their weapons. They just wanted to type chat, right? The AFK bard, which is almost as bad as well, probably just as fucking bad, depending on the songs and in the range of the songs. Um, Almost, if not just as bad as the AFK Ranger, because the AFK Ranger dies a lot. Any of you guys played EQ1, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. Hell, any of you haven't, go ahead and Google EQ1 Ranger jokes. You'll see pages after fucking pages of it. It's ridiculous. So I quickly got known as the bard, which was the primary identity given to me, that could do fucking anything. I mean, I got banned one time because we flagged too many people for Triple M and Crystallos. I got a week-long ban from the GM pit, and then an offer to come in and test them for more shit like that. I'm the reason Zeta and the other little fucking Spire have tethers on the bosses now, why the bosses can't even leave the room. That's me and my buddy Brummenden. If he's watching this right now, he's probably smiling ear to ear. That was us. We used to pull them bitches, clean the fuck out of that thing without shit. I mean, we're talking about an event that took about 2.5 hours to get all the way to, and you still probably died on the way up there quite a few times. And we turned it into a 15-minute process of me and him pulling, and then the raid just killing the boss at the bottom once I got it split. So we built our reputation based on the tools we were given, based on our primary identity, and we created our own identity unique to that. And with a game like this, that's really what players want. That's what a lot of players thrive on doing, and it's an absolute beautiful thing. And so that's what we're doing. For us, the classes are probably the most important thing for the player interface to the game. Without the classes, we feel like our game wouldn't really offer enough for the players to want to come and experience the world, right? Like when you tell a story, write a book, the first paragraph has to be catching, or not paragraph, but the first 4 pages have to be catching, and then the first chapter, and then you just need to continue on from there. And if your first chapter sucks, and this was advice I got for the first initial edit that I ever got for my book, the advice I got was, if people don't give a fuck about your characters, they're not going to find out why the fuck your character's doing what he's doing. And so I made people care the fuck about my character. So we want people to care about the classes, which means, this comes right back to balance, that if the classes don't function correctly, not just individually, but as a whole, if we got 28 classes. If we've got one class that's overpowered or one class that's underpowered and nobody likes it, it means nobody's going to have it at the raid. That means that poor son of a bitch that leveled that fucking class up with his buddies, and then his buddies quit the game and he wants to continue playing but now can't join a fucking raid guild because nobody wants that class, that for us is an absolute failure. We've got 28 classes that have rather unique roles. Hell, we got ideas for new classes coming in all the time, and a lot of them are really brilliant. But to be honest with you, 28 is pretty fucking ambitious. Adding to that, probably not on our plate of things to do right now. Adding to that with expansions, absolutely. No question about that. If that's what players want, we'll give players what the fuck they want. Especially Altaholics. All day with Altaholics. So, yeah. So that's our class versus the game. It's important to have all of our classes function on a high capacity. And some of these classes, at first they're going to seem like, I don't really see how the fuck that's going to work. But they, as we've been sitting here building them up, and I've watched Crave go through and turn them into something a little more. They've actually impressed me quite a bit. So I'm excited to see. Why does Bard not have concept art? I'm gonna have to talk to somebody about that. Oh yeah, we just picked up a new concept artist too. That's what the next task is. Serena, if you're watching this, concept art for Bard, get on it. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions? I know I've typically posed questions, but I honestly didn't have any legitimate questions to ask you, so I couldn't really pose any questions at you. Um, Hopefully, we'll start getting more and more questions that people are more and more concerned about the game or excited, right? I think that's where the questions come from, concerns or excitement. If somebody's excited, they want to know more. If somebody's really concerned, they want to prove the game sucks. So, yeah, keep your PR crap to yourself, Adora. Just kidding. She's probably absolutely right. Probably. Oh, fuck off. 28 is a lot. There's no doubt there. And somehow we managed to actually create 28 different classes. So it's it's going to be fun. A lot of fun for players. The beauty of the multiple class system is there's a lot of I haven't seen that yet that takes place. Not to mention classes inside themselves are going to build themselves differently. Um, I mean, with our combination slots, role slots, and ability slots, my being a bard is going to be different than the way Joe Schmuckatelli is going to play his bard. Um, I'm definitely going for the pulling charming bard. So those are going to be my focuses. I can tell you that right now. I want to be able to pull for the group, and I want to be able to charm shit. Another bard is going to focus on debuffs and CCs, mezzes type shit, and that's going to be their primary focus. For pulling, I will use Lullaby and Mez to split pulls, but at a raid, Mez isn't going to be my main game. Well, actually, at a raid, Mez will be my main game. I'll already have like two or three different groups of armor, and that's the other thing. Inventory space. I talked about inventory space a few weeks ago. I was thinking about it. I'm gonna have like three or four different builds, like based on the type of boss we're going against, on the raid we're going against, whether or not I'm soloing, because it's gonna be completely different. Soloing, I'm gonna need heavy charm capability with extended durations and all that shit, um, and then enough resistance to resist damage. I don't know if anybody's seen the charm write up yet, but charm in this game is a very unique subsystem. I don't know if it's under here, but basically the target I charm, I can't recharm once it wears off. I have to wait. We haven't decided on an amount of time yet. 15 to 20 seconds before I can recharm it, and at that point in time, I've got the most amount of threat. The tanks can pull threat off of it, but it's going to take some effort, and it does increase damage to me specifically. So it's a risk situation. That way, charm doesn't become this OP capability. It doesn't just become something that, an enchanter can go in and charm the whole fucking zone and run around and do whatever the fuck they want. It's a risk reward type system. So, and I don't know where the hell I've got it. So I won't try looking for it, but I lied to you. I just clicked on something else. Yeah, all right. Anyway, so charm in this game is going to work really fun. Yeah, it is. It's a big number. Uh, I think honestly, I don't even know. I think we just had those damn classes. Actually, I think we had 24, and we decided we wanted some gun classes, and so we added four more. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how that played out. So that's that. All right, so I'm gonna close this out so you guys can go and masturbate or hang out with your dogs or kids or spouse or significant other, or I don't know, watch reruns of Simpsons. I don't know. Anyway, this is my um, PR spit right here. Thank you for coming. God, that was horrible. Don't forget to head on over to the website and subscribe for the newsletter. Then after you've done that, head over to the forums. Internet is being slow as shit, or at least our website is. Head over to the forums and subscribe to the forums. Talk it up, ask questions, talk as much shit as you want. They got a forum post right now where somehow it's turned into to me dancing around in a fucking tutu. Um, Fucking assholes. If you've got any talents, business, or game creation, or otherwise, um, click on the donate button and donate your time. God, it's being so slow. I'm about to check all my shit because there's no way this is the website. Donate your time by filling out the volunteer form. I do not respond right away. We do. I've slowed down just a little bit. Bringing in volunteers. The truth of that is we've got 32 right now. I've got 6. No. I've got like 12 lined up for future times because we just don't have the positions they want to feel available yet. Coding and then server tech right now being the 2 main ones. Yeah. So 32 people, 10 or 12 on deck. Before funding, that becomes a bit of a concern because even when we do get funding, it's not going to be, constant. We're not expecting to be, I really hate saying this name right now with all the controversy going on. I don't know either way on what's going on with it, so I'm not saying either way, but we're not expected to be like Star Citizen, where we put in for I'm pretty sure our first one's going to be 250,000, but they put in for, 500,000 and wound up with 2 million or 8 million or 10 million or something like that. Maybe it was 20 million. I don't really know. At the end of their first Kickstarter, and that was like weeks, wasn't even the entire Kickstarter phase. So we're not expecting to be, fully funded at launch, which means that if I bring all these people on to volunteer, well, I can absolutely lead that many people plus more. The question comes to when the funding starts. Some people are going to be a little upset if we don't have the money to start paying salaries for them. Meanwhile, we've got the money to pay salaries for these people. So it's contracts and paperwork, and it can turn into a nightmare just as quickly as it turned into a blessing. So absolutely love having everybody here, all the people that are on this staff. I mean, let's be honest, we got 32 fucking people who none of us knew before this happened, volunteering their time effectively to help us create this beast of a game. So we never expected that. We honestly expected 18 at the most, 18 people at the most, and that was it. And we've almost got double that. So it's a blessing, and if it's not controlled, if it's not managed properly, it could become a curse. So I just have to make sure that it's being done. So I will get to your volunteer. If you go for it, if you're in one of them jobs where we absolutely need you, you'll hear from me before anybody else does. But until I figure out how to make everything function without any major concerns, there is delay. So if you filled one out, then know that I've seen it. I've absolutely seen it. I'm not ignoring you. I'm discussing with leadership where to, or what the proper steps are going to be to take, so that we don't violate the integrity of your time, because that's important to us. More than having this game and having people working on a game is the integrity of the staff and the integrity of the people who are here following the game. So go over to Facebook and give us a like. Sacrament New Gods. Adora usually posts those links for you if you want to link directly to it. Follow us on Twitter. It's just Sacrament Game. And then tune in next week as we discuss more stuffs. Also, if you've got anything that you want me to cover, any questions you've got, anything at all, you can send me a private message on Facebook if you can find me, or on the forums. Probably the easiest place is the forums. You can ask the question on the forums. There's a spot on the forums about what you guys would like to see. And last week, again, I did not put up the podcast. I will do that. I will actually sit here and do this one and last week's once I turn this off and before I leave my computer so that it's done. Um, I get busy as shit, let me tell you. And managing all the social media stuff is not my strong suit. So, all right. Anyways, what do we got? Oh yeah, our exit mode. Yep, I'm having problems with that, so give me a minute while I figure that out. I am. All right, here it comes.